I remember that Friday evening like it just happened. All week long, I'd been carrying around my dad's old silver pocket watch, thinking it might be the right time to give it to my granddaughter, Madison, for her wedding. My hands felt heavier than usual as I made my way up the granite steps to Tyler's place, Madison's fiancé. The house looked like something straight out of a design magazine in Austin. Big glass walls, polished wood floors, and couches that looked too expensive to even touch. Madison came out of the kitchen, her smile bright, but her eyes a little anxious. "Grandpa, you made it," she said, kissing my cheek and glancing at the little velvet box in my hand. "It's your great-grandfather's watch," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Thought you might want it for your big day." Tyler came out from the living room, swirling a glass of Merlot, dressed like he just stepped off the cover of some business magazine. His eyes scanned my pressed chinos and my blue shirt, the nicest clothes I own, but I could tell it wasn't up to his standards. "Walter," he greeted me with a handshake that was over before it began. "Still working over at Route 66 Diner?" I nodded. "Yeah, Mr. Jenkins treats me well." He shrugged, barely interested, and eyed the gift box. "What's that?" "It's Grandpa's watch," Madison said, beaming. I carefully opened the box, revealing the polished silver timepiece, the chain looped just right. Madison's face lit up, but Tyler hardly even looked. "Vintage," he said flatly. "Might be worth something if you find the right buyer." The words stung more than I wanted to admit. To me, that watch wasn't about money, it was about family, about memories. Before I could say a word, Madison's Aunt Patty called from the dining room that dinner was served. The table looked like something out of a celebrity chef's special: crystal glasses, shining cutlery, a chandelier that looked like it belonged in a hotel. Madison motioned me to a seat, and I tried to blend in with all that polished perfection. I asked how the wedding planning was coming. Tyler sliced his steak with a surgeon's precision. "Keeping it small," he said. "Just our closest friends and my business partners," Madison added quickly. "And family," she finished, looking my way. I caught the sideways glances, the short replies whenever I tried to make small talk. Tyler finally set down his fork and looked at me the way a manager looks at someone about to be fired. "Walter, we should have a chat." Madison froze, her fork in midair. "It's about the wedding," Tyler said, leaning back with all the confidence of a man used to getting his way. "We've invited some important people, executives, investors, city council members. This isn't just a party. It's an opportunity. Your work, well, your background doesn't really fit the atmosphere I'm aiming for." It felt like being punched in the chest. The room went quiet. "That's my grandfather," Madison said, her voice sharp. "I know," Tyler replied. "But I need to set a tone for the event. I can't risk my reputation because of nostalgia." I thought about the years I'd worked late shifts to help pay for Madison's college, her first car, her apartment rent. I tried to say something, but Tyler cut me off. "You serve food for a living," he said. "My guests make decisions, build companies, influence the city. Do you really think you'll be able to keep up?" My ears buzzed, but Madison's voice broke through the noise, soft, apologetic, but I barely heard her. Tyler stood, motioning to the patio. "Let's continue outside." We walked onto a terrace that overlooked a lawn where staff were setting up tents and lights for the wedding. Beyond the fence, the city of Austin shimmered in the early evening. "This house cost me $4 million, Tyler said, as if he was talking about the weather. "The wedding, don't even ask. The flowers, the photographer, Madison's dress. I paid for her college. 4 years at Texas State. The car. The rent. All out of my pocket. Now she's my responsibility." I looked down at the watch in my hand, a century's worth of family history pressing into my palm. "You can't just," I began, but he leaned in, his voice low. "The mayor's coming." A senator. Some of the biggest names in the city. I won't let this turn into a charity event. Madison's too important for that. I could see Madison pacing inside, watching us through the glass. Fine, I said, barely above a whisper. If it's better for her, I won't come. Tyler's mouth twitched in something like satisfaction. Glad we understand each other. As I turned back toward the house, he added, Leave the watch. Madison doesn't need reminders of old complications. I held the box a little tighter, walked past Madison's worried eyes, and slipped out the front door. The drive back home took me through 3 different worlds. First was Tyler's gated neighborhood, with rolling lawns, and ported fountains, and security guards who nodded but didn't quite meet your eye. Then I cut through the suburbs, kids on bikes, cracked basketball hoops, faded porch swings. Finally, I reached my corner of Houston, apartment buildings standing shoulder to shoulder like old soldiers, their brickwork weathered but loyal. My building didn't have a doorman or marble floors. Just a flickering fluorescent in the lobby and a row of mailboxes with chipped paint. I climbed the 2 flights up, each step feeling heavier than the last, and let myself into my little apartment. The silence hit me first. No chandeliers, no art on the walls, just the framed photos of Madison at every age. Pigtails, high school cap and gown, holding the keys to her first apartment. Every milestone I'd worked for, sometimes at the expense of my own dreams. I set the watch on the kitchen table and just stared at it. Tyler called it vintage, like all it was good for was a price tag. But it wasn't the gold or the brand that mattered. My dad had wound it every morning before heading to the auto plant. His dad before him, back when Houston was more oil rigs than office towers. The real value was in the years, the hands that held it, the stories it had witnessed. I pulled out my old calculator and started adding things up. 4 years of Madison's tuition at Texas State, $98,000. Rent for her first place, $15,000. That little red Honda, $4,000 down. Security deposit, $1,200. The numbers blurred, but the total was well over $180,000. Every dollar earned the hard way, tips, extra shifts, missed weekends. My phone buzzed, the screen lighting up with Madison's name. Grandpa, she said, voice thick with tears. I'm so sorry about tonight. I tried to sound reassuring. It's all right, Maddie. No, it's not. He had no right to talk to you like that. You should be at my wedding. I closed my eyes, heart heavy. Sometimes life isn't fair, kiddo. But I'll find a way to be there for you. How? Tyler meant it. He won't change his mind. I glanced out the window, watching the lights of downtown Houston flicker. Don't worry about me, I told her. Just be happy. That's all I ever wanted. After we hung up, I sat in the dark, Tyler's words echoing in my head, "You're a waiter." Like it was a label, a verdict. He didn't know what being a waiter really meant. We move unseen. We listen. We see people at their worst and at their best, always in the background. If I wanted, I could stand 3 feet from Tyler all night and he'd never know I was there. That thought grew roots inside me. By the next morning, it had sprouted into a plan. By 8 a.m., I was already headed to the old Route 66 diner. The dining room was quiet, just the hum of the refrigerators and the smell of onions being chopped. Mr. Jenkins was at the prep counter, knife moving like he was conducting an orchestra. "You're early, Walter," he said, not looking up. "You're not due till lunch." "Couldn't sleep," I said, pouring coffee for both of us, cream and sugar for him, black for me. "I need a favor." He paused, finally meeting my eyes. "It's about Madison's wedding. I heard they're having it at Barton Creek Country Club, right?" He nodded. "Yeah, but you're not on the guest list?" I shook my head. "Tyler doesn't want me there. Said I don't fit in with his world. I need to work that day, just for one shift." The catering team could use an extra hand, right? He set the knife down, studying me. You want to work your granddaughter's wedding? It's the only way I'll get to see her walk down that aisle. He can't keep me out if I'm staff. Mr. Jenkins thought for a long moment. That's not right, Walter. You should be up front, not in the back with the busbas. I shrugged. We take what we can get. He finally nodded. The catering's run by Gulf Star Events, but I know their manager, Paul Mendoza. We played baseball together in high school. I'll make a call. Hope flickered inside me. You'd do that? He nodded, softer now. You're the most loyal worker I've ever had. If that kid can't see your worth, that's on him. Be at the club by 11 a.m. Paul will expect you. Relief and gratitude flooded through me. Thank you. I won't forget it. Mr. Jenkins waved me off. Don't thank me yet. Tyler's not the kind to give up easily. By afternoon, I was back at the diner, folding napkins, lining up silverware, trying to keep my mind off tomorrow. The work kept my hands busy, but my thoughts wandered to Madison, her white dress, the smile she'd have as she walked down that aisle. Around 3:30, voices drifted in from the lobby, one bright and sweet, one colder, heavier. Madison's laughter reached me first, then Tyler's sharper tone. The flowers should go there, not blocking the dance floor, he was saying. I kept my head down, acting like just another staffer. Madison spotted me, her face lighting up for just a moment before she glanced at Tyler. She hurried over, casual in jeans and sneakers, cheeks flushed. Tyler followed, his expression shifting from surprise to suspicion. What are you doing here? He demanded. Working, I answered, voice steady. Mr. Jenkins asked me to help with setup. You can't be serious, Madison said, stepping between us. Tyler's voice grew sharp. Your grandfather is trying to manipulate things. I told him not to come, and here he is, sneaking in with the staff. This is manipulation. I shook my head. Your guests won't even notice me. I'm just here to do a job. Tyler's eyes narrowed. This wedding costs more than you'll make in 10 years. I won't have you turning it into some display of pride. My pride's intact, I said quietly. Tyler laughed, but it sounded hollow. Is it? Then why are you here, hiding behind a serving tray? Because Madison is my granddaughter, I replied. And when she walks down that aisle, I'll be there. Whether you notice or not. Madison's eyes glistened with tears, but I stayed firm. Tyler spun on his heel and stormed out, Madison following close behind. I could feel the tension in the room, but I kept working, steady as ever. The rest of that afternoon crawled by in a blur. I polished glasses until my fingers ached, folded linen napkins into neat triangles, and tried not to let Tyler's words rattle around in my head. I'd spent a lifetime making myself invisible when I needed to, first in kitchens, then in busy dining rooms, now at the edge of my own family's celebration. When my shift finally ended, Mr. Jenkins found me in the back hallway. Paul says you're set for tomorrow? 11 sharp. Wear your best white shirt and black pants. You'll be on drinks and tray service. Nobody will look twice at you. He clapped me on the shoulder, his eyes softening. If that kid starts anything, you come find me. I won't let anyone mess with you here. Thanks, Ed, I said, calling him by his first name for the first time in years. I'm just glad to have a way in. He shook his head with a half-smile. She's lucky to have a grandpa who fights for her. I spent that evening laying out my work clothes, making sure everything was ironed and spotless. The uniform was nothing fancy, but to me, it was camouflage, my ticket to being there for Madison, even if it meant blending in with the staff. Sunday morning arrived bright and clear, the kind of spring day that made Texas wildflowers bloom along the highways. I left my apartment before sunrise, too wired to sit still. I stopped for coffee at a corner store, the kind where the cashier calls everyone "darlin'," and nobody cares what car you drive. My old Chevy rumbled all the way to Barton Creek Country Club, engine ticking in the silence as I parked in the staff lot behind the building. Inside, the ballroom was already a hive of activity. Servers bustled with trays, florists added last-minute touches to towering bouquets, and the catering manager, Paul, a heavy-set man with a kind smile, walked me through my duties. "Your station 4, champagne service, keep the trays moving, keep out of the pictures. You know the drill." "Like the back of my hand," I replied, falling into the easy rhythm of the work. By 5 o'clock, the first guests started arriving. Black SUVs and glossy sedans filled the drive. Men and women in sharp suits and gowns stepped onto the red carpet, their laughter echoing under the high ceilings. I kept my head down, offering champagne with a polite nod, not drawing any attention. From my station, I could just see Madison in her gown, a vision in white and gold, radiant even through the nerves. Tyler stood beside her, every inch the proud host, shaking hands, greeting his guests, laughing louder than anyone else. Every so often, his eyes would sweep the room and land on me, but he never said a word. The look on his face was enough. He'd wanted to erase me from the day, but here I was anyway. The reception hall shimmered with light and music, waiters swirling around tables, guests talking about investments and politics and country club memberships. I could have been invisible, just another face behind a tray. That's exactly how I wanted it. Dinner came and went in a blur of speeches and laughter. Madison's maid of honor told a story that made her laugh until she cried. Tyler's best man gave a toast about ambition and partnerships and the power of building your own destiny. Then Tyler himself stood, tapping his glass with a silver spoon. The room fell silent. He started out smooth, thanking everyone for coming, talking about shared values, the importance of striving for success. But then his tone shifted. "Success," he said, "is knowing your place in the world. Surrounding yourself with those who matter, who achieve, who lead. And of course, there are those who serve, who make these moments possible, but don't take part. Like our staff tonight." His eyes locked on me. "Take Walter here. He's spent his life serving tables. Some people are builders. Others just pass the plates." The words hung heavy in the air. A few guests shifted uncomfortably, glancing between Tyler and me. Madison's face went pale. I set my champagne tray on the nearest table, hands steady, and asked quietly, "Anyone else for champagne?" A couple of guests nodded, relieved for the distraction. I poured, my movements precise, my smile professional. Tyler waited for a reaction, but none came. He'd expected humiliation. Instead, the room's attention slipped quietly away from him. Conversation started up again, low and awkward. His speech fizzled out before it could ever catch fire. I kept moving through the crowd, clearing empty glasses, refilling drinks. The guests began to whisper, not about me, but about Tyler, his arrogance, his need to put people down. I heard snatches of sympathy from strangers. "That's her grandpa? He seems dignified. Did you hear what Tyler said? Out of line." As I worked, I heard a burst of laughter from the far end of the room. A young man stood up, pointing at the large screen playing old movie clips, a tradition at this club, apparently. The film was grainy, black and white, but there I was, younger, thinner, in a navy uniform, delivering lines to a glamorous actress. "That's him," the young man blurted. "That's our waiter." Heads turned, murmurs spreading. An older woman in a green dress squinted at the screen, then at me. Her eyes widened. "I remember this film. He was marvelous." People started pulling out their phones, searching, showing side-by-side pictures. Someone read aloud. "Walter Taylor, 7 films between 1988 and 1995, Golden Globe nominee for The Gulf Crossing." Across the room, Tyler's hand shook, his champagne glass clinking against the plate. But I kept working, just as I always had. The air had changed now. Where there had been distance, there was curiosity. People smiled at me, asked questions, some even wanted photos. "Why didn't you say anything?" someone called out. I just smiled, holding my tray. "Tonight isn't about me," I said quietly. "It's about Madison." The hush that followed my words was different than the awkward silence after Tyler's speech. It was the kind of quiet that meant people were thinking, reevaluating, maybe even feeling a little ashamed of how they just watched a man be publicly dismissed. I moved among the tables with a sense of calm I hadn't felt since the day started. A lifetime of serving taught me one thing: you never let them see you flinch. The energy in the room shifted. I could hear whispers, guests recognizing me from those old movies, murmurs about the man Tyler had tried to make invisible. Madison's friends shot me sympathetic smiles. A few even raised their glasses as I passed. Tyler, for his part, looked lost, his confidence unraveling with every passing moment. It was Madison who finally made her move. She pushed her chair back and, still in her wedding dress, made her way through the crowd. People parted to let her pass, their conversations dropping to a hush. When she reached me, she took my hands in hers, her grip shaking a little, but strong. "Grandpa," she said, voice unsteady, "why didn't you ever tell me?" I looked at her and smiled, feeling decades of pride and pain behind my eyes. "Because who I was isn't as important as who I am now, Maddie. What matters is this day. You. The woman you've become." Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "You gave up everything for me," she whispered. I squeezed her hands. "No, honey. I gained everything that mattered. No role on a screen could compare to being your grandfather." She broke into a shaky laugh and hugged me, her veil draping over my shoulder. The entire room watched in a breathless silence, and when we finally let go, the applause started, soft at first, then growing into a standing ovation. People clinked glasses and cheered. I caught Tyler's gaze across the room. He looked smaller than I'd ever seen him, the spotlight having moved away from him entirely. The celebration carried on. Guests began to approach me, shaking my hand, sharing stories about movies they'd watched with their own grandparents, asking for photos, or simply wanting to thank me for my years of work, both on and off the screen. I tried to keep the conversation light, always steering it back to Madison and her special day. Near the bar, a voice stopped me in my tracks. "Walter Taylor, you old rascal!" It boomed. I turned to see Frank Rivers, an actor friend from the Hollywood years, now with silver hair and a tuxedo sharp enough to slice the tension in the room. He clapped me on the back and grinned. "Madison invited me weeks ago. Didn't say you'd be here working the crowd." I shook my head, chuckling. "I'm not hiding, Frank. Just doing what I do best, helping out." Frank's eyes sparkled with amusement. "You know there's talk of a documentary about actors who walked away at their peak? Your name's at the top of the list." He leaned in. "You wouldn't come back for one last role?" I sipped my coffee, feeling the warmth in my chest. "Frank, I already have the role of a lifetime." "Grandpa." He studied me, then nodded in understanding. We stood together for a while, watching Madison laugh with her friends, the stress of the day finally lifting from her shoulders. But I could tell from the way Tyler was shifting in his seat at the head table that the night wasn't over. A hush rippled across the room as Tyler rose, walking to the microphone. He tapped it once, his usual polished tone replaced with something raw, almost shaky. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began. "Earlier tonight I said some things that were inexcusable. You could have heard a pin drop. Even the servers froze mid-step." He looked straight at me. "I want to apologize. Not just to Walter, but to everyone here. I judged him by the wrong standards, by status and income, when I should have recognized his character." He paused, letting the words settle. "Walter is more of a man than I realized. I hope he can forgive me, and I hope all of you can too." The room stayed silent, all eyes on me. I set down my tray and walked toward the head table, each step steady. Madison's hands were clasped to her heart, her eyes glistening with hope. When I reached Tyler, I extended my hand. "Family is what matters most," I said quietly. "Everything else is just noise." Tyler took my hand in both of his, this time with no competition in the grip, just something like understanding. "Thank you, Walter," he said softly. "I was afraid you'd make me look small in front of them." I smiled gently. "You did that all by yourself. But we can move forward." Madison sprang to her feet, wrapping her arms around both of us. "I love you both," she whispered, voice breaking with relief. The applause started up again, louder, warmer, more genuine than before. Frank raised his glass from the bar, grinning at me with a look that said, "Now that's a showstopper." Tyler turned back to the microphone, raising his own glass. "To Walter Taylor, actor, grandfather, and the man who taught us all what true success really is." The toast was echoed by everyone in the hall, laughter and celebration filling every corner. Madison slipped her arm through mine. "Grandpa, will you dance with me?" "Always," I said, and together we stepped onto the dance floor as the music started, a gentle, steady waltz that filled the room with hope. The music flowed over us, soft and steady. Madison slipped her hand into mine, her eyes shining. As we danced, the crowd gathered around, forming a circle of warmth and support. The moment felt suspended in time, no longer about grudges, regrets, or hurt pride, but about family, forgiveness, and the love that held us together through everything. "I used to make you stand on my shoes when we danced in the kitchen," I whispered, chuckling at the memory. "You'd boss me around, but I always let you lead." Madison laughed, dabbing at the corner of her eye. "I remember. You always made me feel like the most important person in the world, Grandpa. Because you were, and still are." Around us, the guests swayed gently to the music, smiles on their faces. Some watched with nostalgia, perhaps remembering their own fathers or grandfathers. Others simply let themselves be caught up in the simple joy of the moment. Tyler stood at the edge of the dance floor, finally smiling. This time, it was a real, unguarded smile, not the practiced grin of a man hosting an important event. As the song ended, Madison hugged me tightly. "Thank you for coming tonight. For everything. There's nowhere else I'd ever want to be," I replied. The rest of the evening unfolded in a way I hadn't expected. Tyler, humbled, checked on me several times throughout the night, even introducing me to some of his friends and business partners as his father-in-law with a more interesting life than any of us. The ice between us was slowly melting, replaced with tentative respect. Guests continued to approach me. Some asked for stories from the old film days. Others just wanted to shake my hand or say well done. I kept my answers short, always steering the focus back to Madison and Tyler, making sure the spotlight belonged to them. Later, while grabbing a coffee near the dessert table, Frank cornered me again. "You sure you're done with Hollywood, Walt? There are a lot of folks who'd pay to see you back on the big screen." I smiled, shaking my head. "I've already had the role of a lifetime, Frank. Nothing beats this." He nodded, looking around the room. "Most people spend their lives chasing applause. You found something better." He lifted his cup in a silent toast. By the time the last song played, the hall had started to empty. Staff moved quietly between tables, clearing away plates and glasses. Madison, still glowing, sat laughing with her friends, but I could see the tiredness setting in. Weddings, no matter how beautiful, were marathons. I slipped quietly toward the back, hung my vest and bow tie on a hook, and washed up in the staff kitchen. My shirt was damp with sweat, but my heart felt light, lighter than it had in years. On my way out, Tyler intercepted me by the side door. "Walter," he said, looking awkward but determined, "I don't know if I can ever make up for what I said to you before the wedding, but I want to try." I studied him for a moment, searching for any sign of insincerity. All I found was a young man, finally ready to admit his mistakes. "That's all anyone can do," I said, shaking his hand. This time, the grip was firm, steady, and real, no tension, no posturing, just an understanding that we were, at last, on the same side. The drive home was peaceful, the night air cool through my open window. I passed from the grand homes and manicured lawns of the country club, through familiar neighborhoods, and finally back to my apartment building. The old Chevy rumbled to a stop in its usual spot. I climbed the stairs, shoes echoing in the quiet hallway. Inside, I set my coffee mug on the counter and sank into my favorite chair. The apartment was silent, except for the soft hum of the fridge. On the table sat a photo of Madison at 6 years old, missing 2 front teeth, her smile wide and uninhibited. Tonight, I realized, I'd given her a gift she might not fully understand for years: the certainty that she could always count on me, no matter the cost. I drifted off to sleep with the memory of our dance lingering in my mind, the warmth of her hug still echoing in my chest. In the darkness, the weight of the past few weeks, of rejection, humiliation, uncertainty, finally lifted. I woke to the gentle sound of rain tapping at the window, the world outside painted in shades of gray. My back ached from the hours on my feet, but I didn't mind. It was a good ache, the kind you earn through effort and love. I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat at the table, the steam curling upward as I watched the world go by. The pocket watch, now back in its box, sat before me, a quiet reminder that time keeps moving forward, no matter what storms you weather. A knock at the door pulled me from my thoughts. When I opened it, Madison stood there in jeans and a sweatshirt, her hair pulled back, face fresh and makeup free. "Morning, Grandpa," she said, her voice soft and a little sleepy. "Morning, Mattie. You're up early for a newlywed." She stepped inside, glancing around my small apartment. "Tyler's still sleeping. I wanted to see you." I poured her a cup of coffee, and we sat together in comfortable silence, the rain filling in the spaces between words. For a long while, neither Madison nor I spoke. We just sat together, sipping coffee, letting the rain's gentle rhythm do all the talking. It felt peaceful, no pressure, no pretense, just 2 people grateful to have each other. Finally, Madison looked at me, her eyes clearer than I'd seen in years. "I don't think I've ever been prouder than I was last night," she said quietly. "Not because of who you were, but because of who you are." I swallowed hard, looking down at my hands. "I'm just your grandpa, Mattie." She shook her head. "No. You're the man who taught me to stand my ground without hurting people. You didn't fight Tyler with anger. You just showed him who you are and let him come to you. That was the only way it would work," I said. "Pride's a stubborn thing." She reached over, laying her hand gently on top of mine. "He knows now. We talked after you left. He admitted he was wrong." I let out a long, slow breath. "That's a good start." Her gaze drifted to the small velvet box on the table. "You never told me much about your dad, about that watch." I slid the box across to her. "He was a quiet man. Never said much, but when he did, it mattered. This watch was his, then mine. I meant to give it to you at the wedding, but I think now is the right time." Madison's eyes went wide. "Grandpa, I can't." "Yes, you can," I said, pressing it into her hands. "Not because it's worth anything in dollars, but because it's worth everything in history. Every tick is a reminder of where you came from, and the people who loved you." She wrapped her fingers around the watch, holding it as if it were made of glass. "I'll take care of it. I promise. I know you will." Sunlight began to break through the gray clouds, casting a golden light over the little kitchen table. Madison stood, leaning down to hug me tight. "I love you, Grandpa." "I love you too, Mattie. Always." When she left, the apartment felt quiet again, but this time it was a good quiet, not empty, just calm. I realized the weight I'd carried into the wedding was finally gone. Tyler and I might never be close friends, but we'd crossed the line and left the worst of it behind. Later that morning, I watched the city come alive from my window, kids in rain boots splashing through puddles, neighbors walking dogs, people heading to work. The world kept turning, no matter what dramas unfolded in our little corner. A few days went by, each one feeling a little lighter. Madison and Tyler settled into married life. Every so often, I'd get a text or a call from Tyler, usually about something small: where to find the best breakfast tacos, how to fix a squeaky door, which grocery store had the cheapest coffee. The conversations were awkward at first, but over time, they became more natural. He was trying, and I respected that. One afternoon, Tyler invited me over for dinner. I almost declined, but Madison called to insist. When I arrived, I found the three of us around their kitchen table, laughing at old family stories and eating Tyler's attempt at homemade chili, which was more ambitious than delicious, but nobody minded. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start, a family, rough edges and all. After dinner, as Madison loaded the dishwasher, Tyler lingered by the window. He cleared his throat. "Walter, can I ask you something?" I nodded, waiting. "I'm sorry for everything," I said. "For how I treated you. I was trying so hard to impress everyone, I forgot what really matters." He met my gaze, nervous but sincere. "I want to make things right. I want Madison to be proud of me, the way she's proud of you." I clapped him gently on the shoulder. "You want my advice, Tyler? It's simple. Just show up. Every day, no matter what. That's all it ever takes." He nodded, a small, grateful smile spreading across his face. Madison returned with 3 bowls of ice cream, and the three of us spent the rest of the evening swapping stories and sharing plans for the future. I left their house feeling hopeful for the first time in a long while. That night, back in my apartment, I sat with the old family photo albums. Pictures of Madison growing up, birthdays and holidays, family vacations, each one a small miracle of ordinary love and effort. I thought about my father, and his father before him, and how their sacrifices had made all of this possible. I realized then that the best legacy isn't money or fame or anything you can put a price tag on. It's the love and lessons you pass down, the resilience you model, the steadiness you offer in a changing world. The pocket watch now lived in Madison's hands, but the true inheritance was the strength to keep moving forward, to forgive, to choose love over pride. I turned out the lights and went to bed with a full heart, ready for whatever tomorrow would bring. The weeks that followed settled into a peaceful routine, one I cherished more than anything. I got used to the steady rhythm of small things, reading the morning paper at the corner coffee shop, tending to my little collection of succulents by the window, and catching up with old friends for breakfast at the Route 66 diner. Sometimes Madison would call just to check in, her voice bright and happy. Other times she'd swing by after work for a quick visit, always bringing something sweet from the bakery near her office. One crisp Saturday, Tyler called and asked if I'd come help him fix a leaky faucet. When I arrived, I found him kneeling under the kitchen sink, frowning at a pile of parts. He grinned when he saw me, handing me a wrench with mock seriousness. "All right, coach. Show me how it's done." I laughed and knelt down beside him, walking him through the process. We talked as we worked, about life, about mistakes, about what it meant to try again after you've messed up. By the time the faucet was fixed, Tyler looked at me with new respect. "Thanks, Walter," he said, wiping his hands on a towel. "For everything." That night, Madison sent me a photo, her and Tyler, holding hands at the kitchen table, the old silver watch in the center, its face shining in the warm light. "We'll take care of it, Grandpa," her message read. And each other. As the days grew longer and spring turned to summer, I found myself thinking less about the hurt and more about the hope. I'd lost a lot in my lifetime: people, opportunities, even my old career, but I'd gained something stronger. I'd learned how to bend without breaking, how to forgive without forgetting, how to love even when it wasn't easy. One quiet afternoon, I sat on my little balcony, a gentle breeze stirring the leaves of the potted plants. Across the street, kids raced bicycles up and down the sidewalk, their laughter carrying through the open window. I thought about my father, about the men and women who had come before me, about all the sacrifices they'd made so that I could have moments like this. My phone buzzed. Madison again. "Grandpa, Tyler and I want you to come over for Sunday dinner." No excuses. I couldn't help but smile. "Wouldn't miss it for the world," I texted back. That Sunday, as I walked up the steps to their house, no longer feeling like an outsider, I was greeted by the smell of roasted chicken and fresh bread. Madison opened the door and hugged me tight. Tyler followed, clapping me on the back, his smile warm and real. At the dinner table, we laughed and shared stories, passing bowls and plates, letting the simple joy of family wash away any lingering doubts or regrets. When dessert came, Madison's homemade apple pie, she placed a single, familiar object in the center of the table. The old silver watch, ticking steadily, catching the last rays of the evening sun. "I want to make this a tradition," Madison said. "Every Sunday dinner, the watch sits in the middle, a reminder of where we came from, of what matters." I looked at her, at Tyler, and felt a surge of gratitude so strong it nearly took my breath away. "That's all I ever wanted, Maddie. Just to know you were loved. Just to know you remembered." We sat in companionable silence, the watches ticking a gentle heartbeat beneath our conversation. For the first time in a long time, I felt completely at peace. No longer haunted by what I wasn't, but grateful for who I'd become, a grandfather, a mentor, a survivor, a man who lived and loved enough to let go. As the evening faded and I prepared to leave, Madison walked me to the door. She slipped her hand into mine, squeezing gently. "You're always welcome here, Grandpa. Always." I stepped out into the quiet street, the sky streaked with the colors of sunset. The world was still turning, time moving forward as always, but in that moment, everything felt just right. Because some people measure life in trophies, applause, or the size of their bank accounts. But I'd learned to measure mine in memories, in lessons passed down, in the warmth of a granddaughter's hug and the laughter of a new family around the table. And as the old watch ticked steadily on, I knew that, no matter what, the best parts of my story would live on in the people I loved.